All right, I do believe I'm live. Intrepid Songwriter here, chronicling my adventures as a songwriter, because seriously, who does that? Today, we're going to talk about Taylor Swift's ongoing copyright infringement lawsuit. So, for those of you that are not familiar with what I'm talking about, here it comes. Taylor Swift has, now, this first article is from back in December of last year. So, okay, looks like my screen is still freezing. Hold on. There we go. So, Taylor Swift has been embroiled in a copyright lawsuit since last year. And that's because she's being sued for her lyrics in Shake It Off. You know, players going to play, 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 play. Haters going to hate, hate, hate. Okay. And so this one, as you can see, is from December of last year. Lawsuit filed by Sean Hall and Nathan Butler, the writers of the 2001 song Players Gonna Play by the R&B group 3LW. A trial would test whether parts of Miss Swift's song, including versions of the phrases Players Gonna Play and Haters Gonna Hate, are similar enough to the earlier song to meet the legal threshold from copyright infringement. So let me tell you first and foremost how copyright infringement lawsuits work. The way they work is you have to first prove that whatever you're suing for, whether it's lyrics or melody or wherever else, you got to prove that they're similar enough to the song you're talking about to have infringed on their copyright. Also, to bring a copyright infringement lawsuit normally costs a minimum of 100 G's just to get started. It costs $100,000 just to bring the lawsuit. Many times people ask me, why don't more people get sued? Why aren't there more complaints or problems? And that's because it takes 100 G's to bring the suit. So that's why a lot of stuff goes along and people don't, seem like that they can continue to do what they're doing, because you got to have that kind of money just to bring the suit. Now, when you bring a copyright infringement lawsuit, it's decided by two factors. Factor number one is what this article is talking about, and that is that are the lyrics or the melody in question, or the chord progression, or the structure of the song, whatever you're suing about, is that similar enough to another work for it to be proved that you infringed on their copyright? Okay? You have to prove that if you're the plaintiff, you have to prove that they infringed on your song and they copied your song in whatever you're suing for to make that happen. But the second thing you have to prove is that, did they have reasonable access? That's another area of it that people don't really understand. What that means is that, could they have been exposed to the song to steal the melody or the lyrics in the first place? Now, if it's a publicly released song, then that answer is yes, because the song was out there for public consumption. And so they'll say that since that song was out there, that they had an opportunity to hear your song and they ganked your melody or they ganked your lyrics from the song, and you have a better chance of winning your suit. If it was a song, however, that they created, but it was never released, they never put it on the market, it was never on streaming, it was never performed live, it was never out there for public consumption, then you have a much harder chance. You have a much harder case to prove, because the song was never out there. So, they couldn't have had a chance to hear it and steal it because it was never out there for people to experience. Now, the one thing you don't have to do that most people don't understand is that you don't have to prove intent. So in plain terms, what that means is that you don't have to prove that they intended to rip off your song. Okay, now right here in the article, it says in the 2018 original ruling, the judge said the lyrics under debate were too brief, unoriginal, and uncreative to be protected under the Copyright Act. In other words, his initial ruling was that anybody could come up with players going to play and haters going to hate. So, they weren't protected by copyright in that sense, which brings up a lot of very interesting issues. Because remember, I just told you, you don't have to prove intent. But let me tell you how the cases are decided. The cases are decided either by a judge or a group of people that compare the songs, they A/B the songs, and they see if the song that's being accused of being too similar to that first one, if they really are similar enough, and if you really did rip off their stuff. It's totally a judgment call. Totally a judgment call. It's totally a judgment call, either by the judge or the group of people that they have listened to the song. So if the judge doesn't feel like they ripped your song off, or like the judge in this case, Taylor Swift's case in that original ruling, saying that those songs are basically too generic. They're not the kind of lyrics that you specifically have to come up with. Anybody could come up with that. That was the original ruling in 2018. Okay, then you're not going to win. It's really, really something. So you got to have the money to bring a suit. They have to prove that you had access to the song, and they had to prove that the song is similar enough to your song that there is infringement. They do not have to prove intent. So that means whether they meant to rip you off or not, if they did infringe on your copyright, then they could be found guilty. Now, copyright infringement lawsuit penalties start at $100,000 per infraction. And what that means is that if you have 10 copies of that song, you have to pay $100,000 per infraction. So just 10 copies is already $1 million. So if you win a copyright infringement lawsuit, there is large cash on the table. There are large penalties. Okay? So if it's something you think you can win, it's worth it. But again, you have to be able to afford bringing the suit in the first place. Now, let's look at this other article, because she did get one of the lawsuits dismissed, but it wasn't the main one. So let me share this with you. Okay. Now there you see that she got a lesser known Shake It Off lawsuit dismissed again. This was against Jesse Graham, not the separate and more newsworthy case instigated by Sean Hall and Nathan Butler. Graham sued Swift in 2015, accusing her of ripping off his 2013 song, Haters Gonna Hate on Shake It Off. But again, the ruling was that those lyrics are too generic. So in other words, you could write some stuff, but if it's not unique enough, they're going to say those lyrics are too generic. Anybody could come up with them. And so your copyright protection doesn't count in that case. Can you imagine that? Your copyright protection is guaranteed by the Constitution. Okay? It's in the Constitution, your rights of copyright, but they can judge and rule against you and say, if your lyrics weren't unique enough to be specific to you and your song, if anybody could have come up with those lyrics, then no, the other person wasn't infringing. Can you believe that? But it's true. So the case returned to another court, and it continues to go through the motions. They said that they haven't been able to adequately rebut the arguments of Taylor Swift's legal team. And so Graham has tried to pursue a claim for the fourth time, and he sued through his company instead of suing himself. So I want you to imagine the amount of money he has spent just bringing the lawsuits. But there's a lot of money to gain if he wins. That's the thing. It's like lottery ticket money if you win. If you win, okay? But it's going to be a judgment call by the judge or small group of people if, number one, you had access or they had access to the song, and number two, if it's similar enough to count. And this judge is saying that the lyrics are too generic. That's unbelievable to me. That means you could write a whole song and the judge be like, well, the song ain't unique enough, so your copyright protection doesn't count. So why do I bring stuff like this up? To let you know that even at Taylor Swift's level, you still have to understand copyright. You still have to be concerned about copyright. You still have to understand how copyright works. That's why you hear me say it all the time. There's so many artists, so many musicians, so many creatives, so many songwriters who are just like, I just want to play my guitar, man. That's good, but you still need to understand the business side, because even at Taylor Swift's level, even at the highest level, you got to deal with copyright issues, and you are more likely to be sued the more famous you are. So there is a high probability that even when you get a breakout song, or even when you become a breakout artist, somebody's going to sue you and say that you stole their melody, you stole their lyrics, even if you didn't, even if you had no intent. Now, if you did do it and you get caught, then you're going to have to pay up. You're going to have to cough up that money. But even if you didn't intend to do so, if they prove that you did, then that's a lot of cash that you're going to owe them. Okay, so this stuff is real. This stuff is happening right now in the news. And so all my students, all my clients, all you songwriters, all you artists, all you musicians, you need to be aware of this kind of stuff, okay? Because it's real. And like you hear me say in every video, copyright is our lifeline. That's how we get paid. So you need to learn how to protect it. And you also need to learn how to become a better songwriter. You need to write stuff that's so unique that it can only be you. You understand that? You have a much better chance of your copyright being upheld in a court of law if you ever get sued for infringement, if your lyrics are as unique as they could possibly be. All right, that's it for this episode. Remember my motto, never stop writing. Check out the other videos on my channel. I got some links below this video so you can learn all about copyright, publishing, administration, whatever you need to learn. All right. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, this copyright stuff is real and it's a part of your life right now. Intrepid Songwriter, out.